Howdy, howdy, welcome back to the show. Today, this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm late, whatever, we have Ben Berend. Ben Berend is an Olympian. He is a former U.S. ski team Nordic Combined competitor, and he's this freaking cool guy. We talk about in this podcast the art of knowing when to quit. I think that's like the most interesting topic he brings up pretty much throughout, but mostly towards the end. His experience competing in the Olympics in Pyeonchang in 2018. What he's going to do now, his life as a real estate agent and moving back to Steamboat Springs, and also there's a big bird there. All right, I hope you guys enjoy this podcast with Ben Berend. And dude, check these things out, bro. Look. What? Yo, dude, welcome to the world.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, skiers and riders. Oh, hey.
I'm pretty good right now.
Welcome to Worlds. Thanks again for doing this, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course. Are you doing this for a class, or is this something you've been wanting to do for a while?
No, it's something I've been wanting to do for a while. I've been doing like more and more interviews and stuff for class, and I've kind of realized that, and I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts a lot, so I figured, like, I don't know, I haven't really been doing anything during quarantine and like coronavirus stuff, so I was like, screw it, I'll just start a podcast just to talk to more people and like get myself more open-minded. So I'm trying to like I talked to a documentary professor of mine before you, and then I'm talking to you, and then I also want to talk to people that do like completely different thing, like I don't know, like a dancer or like I don't know, someone who works at a laundromat, like I don't know, like something to
cool, get a broad range.
Yeah, exactly. Because I kind of stay in my realm of like park skiing, biking, climbing, and surfing, and camera people. So I think this is kind of a way for me to like meet new people. And yeah, so do you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yeah, my name's Ben Berend. I grew up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and I was a member of the 2018 United States Olympic team.
Sweet. What sport were you in for the Olympics?
I competed in Nordic Combined.
Okay. What is Nordic Combined?
Great question.
Yeah.
Nordic Combined, it consists of ski jumping with the really long skis, going for distance, and then cross country skiing. So you do both sports in one day. Yeah, so it's a 2-sport event.
So would you like skate ski right before, and then you have the jumping event after in the same day, or how does that kind of work? Is it different days?
So yeah, so the jumping comes first. So everyone jumps, and whoever jumps the furthest wins, and they start the cross country race in the afternoon at 0 seconds. And then depending on how far behind the first place jumper you were, you start a certain time back. So, first place starts at 0 seconds, and maybe 50th place is starting like 3.5 minutes behind them, and everyone else is in between. And then it's just a race to the finish line. First one there wins, basically.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Were you better at one event or the other?
Yes, a lot. Yeah, a lot better at jumping, actually. And most athletes were better at one or the other. It was rare for someone to be like top 5 at both, if that makes sense, because they're such different sports. So like if you look at the ski jumpers, they're really skinny, really explosive. They're like quick twitch athletes. And if you look at cross country skiers, they're really strong. They're muscular, like they have totally different body types, and they're more slow twitch. So then you combine, when you have to do both the sports, most people fall one way or the other.
And
which is what makes it so hard and frustrating.
Yeah. So when did you start off so you started off at a young age, and did you know that you were better than at one or the other like pretty quickly, or did you have a favorite?
I think I always had a favorite, like ski jumping. I mean, ski jumping's pretty hard to compete with as far as like I mean, just getting to huck yourself off a jump, every day after school, like that definitely appealed to me a lot more than like cross country skiing, especially at a young age. Like, I don't know. I don't think I ever thought cross country skiing was that fun. I don't know why I did it for so long. Um, I eventually thought it was fun and appreciated it, but not till I was much older. So ski jumping was always like my favorite thing to do.
Ski jumping is also an individual sport in itself, and if you liked ski jumping so much, why did you never just consider doing just ski jumping?
Yeah, I think it was mostly just being stubborn. I also, and that was the hard part, was that I liked the process of the cross country skiing. Like I liked Nordic Combined because um, I always had a lot of energy, and so part of cross country skiing is you're having to, it's a lot of training and it's a lot of going out running and exercising, and I really enjoyed that. And I looked at the life of a ski jumper, which you know you don't get to do that. Their training plans don't involve like going out and being outside a whole lot. Um, and that lifestyle just didn't appeal to me at all. So stubbornly, I kind of just stayed away from it. And I definitely had like the ski jumping coaches bugged me a bunch and always were trying to get me to switch. But I don't know. I didn't see myself like living that lifestyle.
Can you tell me about how you got into the sport in general in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a hard sport. I mean, the reason it's a small sport is there's not that many places that you can actually, as a kid, you know, do Nordic Combined. So growing up in Steamboat, obviously, I was given that opportunity. Um, and I just remember when I was a kid, all my friends did it. So that was kind of what brought me to it originally, was I just wanted to hang out with my friends after school. Um, and then quickly, like totally just fell in love with it and just stayed in the program at the Winter Sports Club for my whole childhood.
Yeah, I so just for context, I actually, for the audience, I grew up in Steamboat as well, and basically every after school every day, a lot of people would be involved in SSWSC, which is Steamboat Springs Winter Sports Club, and there were like tons of different like you could do ski jumping or freestyle skiing or alpine racing, and it was like this huge social thing. And everyone would go to House and Hill, and there was this huge culture behind, like straight after school everyone's parents would drop them off at Howson, and then you'd like go there till like 6 o'clock. Can you talk more about like House and Hill and
No, yeah,
the significance of that place?
yeah. It's like I always say, it's like the best after school program in the world. Um, and pretty much, most of the kids in town are involved with it. And what makes Howelson so special is obviously the history behind it. And it's one of the oldest ski hills in the country. And then also when you have every single discipline training on the same little hill, essentially, I think a lot of ski clubs around the country, Alpine's over here at this resort, and the Nordic skiers are at the Nordic trails that are across town, and everyone's spread out. But at Howelson, there's a venue for every sport. So, you go there on a Tuesday night in January, and there's 700 kids doing, whatever, 8 Olympic disciplines beneath the lights. It's it really brings the community together into one place. And like in all my years of traveling, I've never found a ski town that like had something that equated to what Howelson is, um, which just kind of like confirmed to me how special that place really is.
Yeah, it's quite a place. Growing up there, I remember basically from a young age, there's this huge, I don't know if it's a, well, I don't know if you felt this too, but it was like kind of a pressure almost to like perform, because I think like because the majority of kids start competing when you're like pretty young, and then the legacy of Steamboat's produced more, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Steamboat's produced more Winter Olympians than any other town in the United States, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I think that that's like pretty much, at least most of my friends were we all wanted to become Olympians, and that breeds like a pretty strong competitive drive for most people. And then you start training and doing like physical training and stuff like that, because honestly, if you don't want to do ski jumping or alpine or some form of skiing activity during the winter, I don't know what else you do in Steamboat. But yeah, so can you just talk about how at a younger age, how maybe your childhood really was different than the majority of other people? I mean, I've grown up and moved around different places around the country, and a lot of people's childhoods seem a lot different than what ours was like. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was just like, I don't know, like I feel like I spent pretty much a majority of my childhood at House and Hill. Um, and for me, it just gave me like it just gave me a place that I didn't really have to worry about anything else. Like when I was at House and like I was just skiing. Um, and the the whole atmosphere there, I don't know, it gave me like an outlet to first of all get rid of all my energy and like do something active. Um, and also just yeah, like almost this like freedom to like when I was at House and yeah, like I wasn't worrying about anything else. I wasn't worrying about school or whatever else there is as a kid. Like it was such a good outlet for me, and I know a lot of other kids felt that way, but I don't know what I would have done without it. I think I would have probably, I don't know if I can't say if I would have been getting in trouble, but I definitely would have been bored. um, I needed that competitive outlet at a pretty young age.
Yeah, I found that was it was key for a lot of people, just because I mean, I haven't been to another town where just the general population just has so much energy and like a constant need to be doing things. Like outside of like during the summer when we weren't competing, I found that like we would just never really stop moving. And then during the winter, it
Yeah,
was always, okay, let's go skiing. Like, when are we going skiing? But then during the summer, it was, okay, like, what do we do? What do we do with all this energy that we normally spend, like, putting towards competition and stuff? But speaking of competition, when did you first start competing in ski jumping? And did your parents push you to do that? Or did you have a natural competitive drive when you were younger? Or, yeah, tell me a little bit more about that.
yeah. I think I first started competing. They had like a Wednesday night jump. They still do it actually. Wednesday night jump series. So it's like 4 Wednesdays during the winter. All of the young kids from 7 to I think it was like 12 get to compete. And it's just all locally. It's no one's like coming in from elsewhere. It's just the club. And as like a 7-year old, it seemed like it was the Olympics. Like I remember taking it very seriously. And so I think that my parents never really pushed me at all. They definitely just wanted me to like have fun and have something to do after school. But um, yeah, I definitely was competitive. Like I thrived on that, especially at a young age. Yeah, I took it very seriously.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually did Wednesday night jumping back in the day on the nice
Yeah,
they had the like, what was the little tiny bump jump that was next to the
yeah, the bump jump.
yeah, the bump jump was the best, dude. I knew I wanted to do freestyle though, because I'd try and do like 360s and tricks off of it instead of trying to go
Exactly.
farther. Oh,
Exactly. That
it's
was probably a good
classic.
sign. It was also like, I always remember this is uh so for Wednesday night jump, we would go practice from like 4 to 5, 4 to 4:45, and then there would be a pizza party up in Olympian Hall. So you would like go jump for 30 minutes, and then you'd come up to Olympian Hall at the lodge, and you would just eat like, I mean, I remember eating like 8 slices of pizza and a couple cups of Coke, and then going out and then ski jumping again. So it was pretty much like the best night of the year.
Just so hyped up on Coke and pizza, just psyched out
Yeah,
of your mind.
exactly.
Is the best, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Uh, so yeah, that was like your first little bit of competition, and then when did you start? Like, so I mean, bump jumps when you're pretty young, and then you kind of worked your way up the different. Well, first, you can you talk about like the different meter lengths of ski jumping and like how they correspond to like. I feel like I mean, at least my friends that jumped, it was the more you moved up the ladder and like the bigger jumps that you jumped off of, the more you'd actually start competing because those jumps would be more like international. So like you wouldn't
Yeah.
compete internationally on like a 30-meter, right? It would be like more of like a 90 or
Yeah.
something like that. So can you talk about
Yeah.
how you like built up over the years, like hitting bigger jumps and like the feeling of like stepping up and doing that for the first time? Because essentially it's kind of like skydiving, right? It's like, okay, like you can do it with someone else, but at the end of the day, like at some point you have to put on the parachute by yourself and descend it. Like, and the thing with ski jumping that I always found terrifying was like park jumps, you could bail. Like I'd go into a park jump and I could speed check if I wanted to, but as soon as you push off the top of like a ski jump, like you can't do anything, dude. You're
You
full.
have to go off the thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd look at my friends who'd go do the 90 or the 120, which is like the 90-meter and 120-meter, and they talk about doing those jumps for the first time and just how terrifying it can be. And yeah, I'd love to hear about the first time you did that and then how that led into you competing nationally and internationally as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I would rather not have an option, going back to what you were just saying. Like, that's the great thing about ski jumping is once you let go and your skis are in the track, you don't have an option. So you don't even have to think. Like if you're like
Yeah.
speed checking, you're thinking like, ooh, do I have enough speed? Should I skip it? But you just don't have a choice, which is great. It just takes that out of the equation. But I think a lot of people, it's funny, a lot of people think ski jumping is such a crazy sport. And they'll watch it and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do this. And what they don't realize is like, it's one of those sports that's really hard to start at an older age because um, the way you work your way up to jumping the like Olympic size ski jumps is you start on the 10 meter and you jump the 10 meter for 2 years. And then you go to the 20 meter and you jump that for a year and then the 30 meter. And it's just this progression where anytime you like kind of master a hill, your coaches send you up to the bigger hill. And so you're never out of your comfort zone and you're always moving up when you're ready. So, you're not jumping the Olympic sized hills till you're, 13, 14, 15 years old. And by that time, you have so many jumps in your life that you're just comfortable with it. It's not like you just show up your first day and jump off the Olympic size hill because that would be crazy. Um, so it's not really a crazy sport because anyone who's like doing it has so much experience. It's like, yeah, you're saying skydiving, like you can't just go jump out of a plane by yourself first time. Like you have to progress to that level. And so then by the time you're doing it, it doesn't seem that wild because you know what you're doing, you're comfortable, you trust your equipment, like you've kind of mastered it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's interesting. Yeah, I just think it's so interesting how because in a way I could see how, because when you go, at least you know the speed, right? It's like if you start at
Hmm.
a certain bench, what's it called? Bar or bench?
Yeah, yeah, bar.
Okay, yeah, you start at a certain bar, which is like the thing you sit on before you drop in. And at least you
Yep,
know, well, I guess depending on your weight, you may or may not, like you're not going to case, like which means like you're not going to land
totally.
on the knuckle of the jump unless you do so intentionally. But what was the biggest like step up in jumps, like meter size for you?
Hmm. Probably going from hmm. I would say probably getting to the big hill, like the K120, the biggest Olympic sized hill, just because the difference there between a 90-meter jump and a 120-meter jump is like you're in the air for so long. To the point that I remember the first time I was jumping it, like I could have thoughts, like I was thinking about stuff in the air and I could like look at stuff. Like I had time to like be yeah, like be like thoughtful, which is super weird because usually when you're doing like especially like sports that involve like a lot of speed and technique and you're kind of in the zone and that's like part of what's cool is you're not thinking. But it got to the point where you're like up there for so long and it's only like 4 or 5 seconds, but it's enough and it feels like yeah, like you can like think about things and like notice stuff, and it was just a really weird experience, I remember.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, I hit my first park jump that I hit where it was like that was probably like a 70 footer. And that was like, okay, I'm in the air and I realize I'm in the air. And that's such a, yeah, like you said, it's such a
Yeah,
trippy feeling because you're
exactly.
like, I'm actually flying right now.
Yeah,
It's nuts.
and I will say that, like, for example, park jumps. You talk about hitting a 70-foot park jump, like that shit's scary. I don't like that at all. Um, and I'm not like a really like a thrill seeker at all. Like, it's not my personality type, which is funny. And I think people assume like, oh, you're a ski jumper, you must be like, you must like really like adrenaline and be kind of a junkie. And it's just not the case at all. Like, pretty much anything else like that, I kind of shy away from, which I just think is funny. Um, yeah,
Interesting. Yeah. So you did the K, and is the K 120 the 120 meter the standard for the like competing Nordic combined like on an Olympic or international scale?
yeah, yeah. So on the World Cup and the Olympic level, it's you compete between you do a 90 meter and 120 meter.
Okay.
Those are the two sized hills that you go back and forth from.
Got it. And so once you did the 90 and the 120, is that when you started competing internationally?
Yeah, yeah, a little, probably a couple years after. And it was like it kind of goes, it's funny, like the sport does go from like when you move up to a new hill, it is like there's a lot of adrenaline because you're doing something you've never done before. So it's like I remember like sitting at the top of every time I jump a new hill, whether it's the 60 meter, the 90 meter, your coach sends you up there and you're like your heart's pounding and you're super nervous. And but once you get to the 90 and 120, you run out of hills and then you just start jumping them a lot. And the whole sport changed for me. And I remember it changed from being like, yeah, there was adrenaline involved because I was like just on the edge, a little bit. But then once I kind of started honing my technique, it totally changed from this thing that felt like it was pretty adrenaline based and like my chest would be beating, or my heart would be beating out of my chest, to then all of a sudden it was almost like became like an art form. Like I was trying to like get the technique right and do it right. And it was, I never like felt scared again. So the sport like shifted a lot at that age for me. And I really actually enjoyed that shift.
How old were you when that shift happened?
Probably like 16, 17 years old.
Okay. And is that pretty standard?
I think so. Yeah, I would say that's pretty standard.
And so you talked about that shift. So how long did it take, like months or years before that shift completely changed to the point where you'd go off the jump and it would all about the minuscule adjustments and stuff rather than thinking about how
Hmm.
crazy the thing you were doing was?
Yeah, yeah, it was probably around like 18, 19 when I got to the point where like I consistently like was close enough to where like I was stable on those jumps. And I wasn't just trying to survive,
Yeah, yeah.
um, to then where it got like it was all technique based. Like, you're just analyzing video for hours a day, and it's just all becomes so like technique based and feel based. Um, yeah, probably 18, 19 years old.
And did that confidence lead to complacency, like injuries or
No,
stuff like that, or no?
no, I would say kind of the opposite. Well, that's a good question. I almost would say that in a sense for ski jumping, complacency helped me sometimes.
Interesting.
um, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird sport. Like we always compare it to golf. It's like a big head game kind of thing. You could be the best golfer in the world one day, and the next day you could be, you know, at the back. It's not that kind of thing where once you're good at it, you're good at it. It's a very hard thing to be consistent about because it's such small, minuscule. You can fix your swing, and then you change one little thing and it's off again. Um, and so that's how ski jumping is. And so it almost got to the point where overthinking it was never going to help. It was just being super confident and just like not thinking about it a whole lot, like just letting it happen. And so I think that actually paid off for me, was just being like, yeah, like just confident and not thinking about it too much.
Yeah. And so you said, I think that's so interesting how you compared it to golf, because if you look physically, they probably could not be more opposite. um, but so you say it's all about the headspace. So what like contributing factors would lead normally to your success? Like, so golf, it's okay,
Yeah,
I'm not injured, I'm in a good headspace, I'm confident. And then it's like the
yeah,
small minuscule things that you do that lead to your like your success. So
yeah.
what traits did you find of like a good mindset and stuff like that did you have that led to your success going into competitions and stuff like that?
Yeah, especially for ski jumping, I found pretty much like the more I just tuned out, um, the better things went. So like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like we had a World Cup in Genève, France, in 2017, and it was um, I remember I had been jumping super shitty. Like I had taken like 8 practice jumps the day before, and like not a single one of them was good. And I kind of was just like, I was kind of in just fuck it mode. And I remember going into the warming hut, and they always at this venue had like super good pizza. Of all things, they would have pizza in the warming hut. And I'm kind of a fat ass, and uh, I remember just mowing on pizza before the competition, uh, and just completely like being in this headset like mindset of just just letting things play out. Like I pretty much knew what I had, and I ended up, that was my best result ever. I jumped to second place that day. And it was just, I remember being in this mindset of like, it actually felt like I was almost sabotaging myself.
Yeah.
Like, ski jumping is a weight sport. You want to be as light as you can be. So no one's eating pizza before they're jumping. Um, and so, in a way, like, I felt like, yeah, I was sabotaging myself, but it put me in this mindset of just like being super relaxed, um, which was funny. And I don't know if I was ever able to replicate that quite to that extent, but I just remember being like so relaxed, and it worked. And so, yeah, it was pretty much, I would sum it up to just like tuning out.
Yeah. And you mentioned ski jumping being a weight sport. So is that just the lighter you are, the better you fly?
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly. It's just like a physics problem. You you're coming off a jump, and everyone has, the same equipment, and you have a certain amount of surface area, and you're flying through the air. Whoever's the lightest is going to go the furthest. Um, and I remember like we had an Austrian coach, and I don't know how exact any of this shit is, but I've had coaches tell me, well, for every kilogram, so for every 2 to 3 pounds lighter you are, you're gonna go 5 to 6 meters further. Which, when you're told that, you're like, well, shit, that seems pretty important.
wow.
And so, yeah, it's a funky balance. Especially then when you throw in that it's not like, I mentioned that I didn't want to be a ski jumper because I didn't want to sit around in my room and starve myself all day.
Yeah.
Doing Nordic Combined, like, yeah, we had to be skinny, but you also have to go race a cross country ski race. So like, you can't be, yeah, you have to be in good health. I'll put it that way, to be able to pull something off like that after jumping. So I think that kept people from getting a little out of control with it. Um, Whereas like ski jumping, that's what I saw. I was like, I didn't want to be a part of that culture, because I knew that was going to make me super unhappy.
Yeah. Were there people because well basically you said that the weight directly contributes to your success, like the lighter you are, the
Yeah,
farther you go within ski jumping specifically. So would that ever breed like a really negative, like, I don't know if it's community is the right word, but like basically,
yes,
like would your coaches just be like, you need to drop this amount of weight to be more successful? And like, would people take that too
yeah,
far to like an unhealthy extent? And how prominent was that throughout the community?
totally. I think I think it's getting better. Like these are the kinds of social, like social issues where like within sport that are they're really trying to work on right now. I know it has a really bad past. And I think that even if the coaches, and that's the thing is like, even if the coaches aren't telling you, you guys need to lose weight, which I mean, we certainly were told that. Um, I mean, when you're a professional athlete and you know that, X factor is going to contribute to your success, like, I don't know how you can just be like, well, I don't really care about that because that seems unhealthy. Like, you're competitive and you see, you look around and you're like, oh, fuck, those guys look fucking skinny this year. Like, I remember we'd always show up for the first competition of the year and, we'd all look around and be like, holy shit, everyone's like half the size of when we last saw them. Like we all would be like, "Oh God, like are we doing something wrong here?" Like everyone, and I think it was pretty negative, and I think it's a pretty hard to like really cancel that completely because you're talking about like a bunch of really competitive people and something that obviously plays a factor in your sport. So I think it definitely produced some negative stuff. And I definitely was around it and saw some of it. But I think it was just something like personally I learned to like take control of, and um, I never felt like I struggled a whole lot with it. But it definitely like I was stoked when I retired and I could be the fat ass that I am.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah. Oh my, I couldn't imagine. So did you see people take that too far? Like, was there anyone that got like actually like unhealthy because of that?
Yeah, I think I saw it. I saw it around, and I think luckily being in Nordic Combined, it wasn't as bad. But on the ski jumping side, there's definitely still issues there. And I don't know what the right answer is to control those kinds of things. They did put some rules in effect, like you can be too light. You can get disqualified for being too light now, which I think helps.
Yeah.
At least there's like a lower rung. But I mean, I remember like I was never even close to being too light, and I was like 5'9", 138 pounds or something, and I could have lost more weight, which is crazy. Um, so I don't know. I don't think it's perfect, but I think they're trying.
Yeah, I think that especially like you said, especially nowadays with the social like change and how people are becoming more
Yep,
aware of those kind of things. I'd imagine that that's being more implemented. But I think that it's good too that they put the weight restrictions on the lighter side, because I could see, especially with such a community with such a like a competitive mindset, that people could get competitive with themselves about trying not to eat. And I could not imagine
totally.
how bad and how far that could go in a negative direction.
Yep.
That sounds pretty crazy. But so what age did you start traveling internationally and competing internationally on like the World Cup or World Pre circuit?
Yeah. I think my first trip to Europe, I was like 15 or 16. And pretty much from then on, I was pretty consistently traveling for that what is the Continental Cup circuit, which is basically like the World Cup B. And then yeah, from then on I was traveling a lot.
And I think, well, just for some people in the audience to know, it's pretty interesting. So ski jumping is a winter sport, but you guys also would travel during the summer. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're correct. And so ski jumping is a winter sport, but it could totally be a summer sport, because all the ski jumps have plastic matting on them that's watered down on the landing hill, and then there's porcelain tracks that are watered down as well, on the in run. So we can ski jump all summer, all winter. Um, it's a year-round sport. I always thought that they should build a ski jump in like Las Vegas or something, because yeah, like there could be ski jumps in places that don't have snow ever, just a year-round summer jump. So that was pretty great because you always got to practice your sport, but also it kind of meant there's no like off season, you know?
That's what I was gonna ask is so then if you had because for like I know a lot of Nordic skiers who just Nordic race and you do roller skiing and stuff, but it's not the exact same. Like the mechanics are still different than
Hmm.
than actually Nordic racing on snow. So how different is the mechanics of like how much different does it feel jumping on a summer jump versus a winter jump? And would you have to like get used to different jumps and train for those differently? Or yeah, what was that difference like?
Yeah, they're the exact same. It's pretty incredible. But when you think about it, like you're only going straight. Like you're not turning when you're ski jumping. You're going down the in run, which is straight, and your skis are in a track, and then you're in the air, and then you land, and you're going straight. So there's not like a whole lot of um, yeah, it's pretty much the same exact thing, which is crazy. So there was really no turnover from like if you're doing something in the summer, you could do the same thing in the winter and it would be the same result.
Yeah. And so when you went like did you have a preference like summer versus winter and like competing in the summer versus the winter?
Um, I don't know. I think I was always excited for whatever it was. Like the summer is nice because you can roll your suit down, you get to work on your tan a little bit. Um, but the winter is like tends to be like competition season, so that was always, exciting. I like summer jumping because it's like no pressure, you're just training, like the weather's nice. So it was nice to get both. I would say I never preferred one or the other.
And because you were so in that and basically in your sport there's no off season essentially you said. So what was your and you traveled internationally during the summer and the winter. So what was your like how did you balance your social life in high school and stuff like that? And just being at home and friends and whatnot. And did you have a lot of friends
Mhm.
outside of the sport or was it just the people that you you traveled with and whatnot?
Yeah, good question. I would say I definitely surrounded myself with people who were in similar situations as me. It's one of those things like, you're making certain sacrifices, um, and it's nice to surround yourself with people who are making similar sacrifices. Um, then you don't really see what you're missing out on as much, if that makes sense. Because I definitely would say I shied away from a lot of social things, especially like in high school, just because I mean, I don't know. I think I liked being in the mindset of like taking something really seriously. It gave me something to be excited about when I woke up in the morning. And I think like staying serious, to me meant like not staying out late, not partying a whole lot, like really being pretty disciplined. And I really enjoyed that discipline. And so I definitely surrounded myself with friends who were on the team with me, other Nordic skiers, other athletes in the winter sports club. Um, because I think if I would have had a bunch of friends, um, kind of having a different lifestyle, I would have caved in and probably realized what I was missing out on. So it was kind of nice to like kind of shy away from that kind of stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And did you ever feel like you were missing out on like being in high school and being in well, so did you go to college and you went to the University of Utah, right?
I actually didn't go to college originally, and I kind of never thought I would. So that's the thing about Nordic Combined is it's not a college sport, and so if you want to, the goal is always, and I think it was easy for me to make the decisions I made because I had such I had these goals in my mind, and I always thought like, well, I might be missing out on some stuff now, but if I work hard and I get to do these goals, like I'm gonna get to experience so much. And I wanted to travel and I wanted to take part in these things that I saw like kind of ahead of me on that path. And so that was like my big motivation was like just knowing like if I make the right sacrifices now, like I'll get to go travel the world and I'll get to go compete and I could someday maybe compete in the Olympics, which I think that was always the biggest goal. Like when I look back on it, like, yeah, it was awesome traveling and competing on the World Cup, but it stayed like competing in the Olympics was always like the number one thing. And growing up in Steamboat, that was kind of ingrained. And so, yeah, I think it was easy to do that because I knew I could maybe get to experience some really, really cool things.
So it was fairly easy to sacrifice those things because of the how strong your goals were and how motivated you were to meet them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I didn't go to college. I took online classes. We got scholarships through the US ski team to like get free online school. So, I would take online classes all year round. But I was definitely like missing out on the college experience, which um, I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I just knew I had made my decision. And I just wanted to see it through.
And so what point did you move? So Steamboat Springs has like a they have great jumps and great programs and stuff, but at one point you moved to Park City. Why did you move to Park City, and what were the benefits of going there, and how did those benefits contribute to your dream of going to the Olympics?
Yeah, so let's see. I moved to Park City when I was 18, and I moved to Park City because I had a nomination to be on the national team, and the national team was based out of Park City. And the shitty thing, I always wanted to be on the U.S. ski team. Like getting to be like, oh, I was on the U.S. ski team, was like a really big thing. And I always kind of wanted to be able to say that. And the year that I qualified for what was the US ski team, they actually cut all their funding for the sport of Nordic Combined. So I remember in the spring, I was waiting to get like the call from the head coach saying, "Hey, congrats! Like you're on the U.S. ski team now." I had met all the criteria, and instead, I got the call, "Hey, so we aren't on the US ski team anymore. You can move to Park City if you want to, but we don't have any funding, and I'm not sure what that means." Um, and so obviously I was super bummed out, but I still was like, well, I still made the decision to move there because the national team was still based there, and um, I wanted to train with the best. So yeah, I made the move, and we ended up getting funding through our own organization and called USA Nordic, and we were able to continue competing and doing everything we did before. But it was definitely a stressful period of time, just not knowing what was going to happen.
And was like because ski Nordic combined is a more a less well-known sport, was not having funding like a consistent problem, and is that still happening today?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Olympic sports in general in the U.S. Struggle because they're not funded in the way that a lot of people think. You look at all these other countries that have their government is funding these sports teams. We don't have that. The government doesn't fund any Olympic sports. And so what happens is that there's national governing bodies. So USA Swimming is a national governing body. USA Gymnastics, um, US Track and Field. For skiing, it's US Ski and Snowboard, and they're the national governing body for all of these sports: alpine, cross country, ski jumping, Nordic combined, freestyle skiing, moguls, aerials. So their governing body has like I forget how many, but 9 sports beneath it, and they get X amount of money from the U.S. Olympic Committee. The U.S. Olympic Committee gives them X amount of money per year to spend based on how many sports they support, but they can spend that money however they want. So what they realize is that they could spend no money on certain sports to give more money to the sports that were more important to them or that they felt like had more medal potential. So that's essentially why now, ski jumping and Nordic combined are not funded by US Ski and Snowboard. Even though they get money that is allotted for us, they can do what they want with it. And so they choose to not provide us with a budget. So it's a lot of politics, and it's definitely not super sustainable. I think every 4 years people watch the Olympics and feel super proud, that these athletes are representing their country, but what they don't realize is that their country is not really supporting these athletes. And so that's a big thing that, I don't want to say contributed to, me retiring from the sport, but it definitely didn't help me stay motivated to continue just because I didn't really see the support. Um, I didn't really see the support.
And when did you become aware of those politics as you described?
Pretty much when I realized that they could cut our funding. And also after my career, I worked for USA Nordic, which is the leadership organization that funds ski jumping and Nordic Combined. Um, and it's completely separate from US Ski and Snowboard, but um, we don't get USA Nordic doesn't get funding from the US Olympic Committee. The money for us still goes to US Ski and Snowboard, but we just don't get it. So it's I think working also afterwards, after my career for USA Nordic in marketing for 2 years, I really started to see, how messed up the system is, and just realizing like something definitely needs to change if we want to keep having these inspirational Olympic athletes and having, people to root for every 4 years. It's definitely, there needs to be a better system and more support.
And so you qualified for the Olympics in what year?
2018.
Okay, and so at 2018 you were aware of the funding situation, and I
Yeah.
assume you were that was your dream and you were excited, but were you more nervous, or how did you feel going into the Olympics representing the country that in a way it's crazy to think, but like you said, they weren't really backing you as much in your success.
Yeah, and I think it was more my beef. My beef is with US ski and snowboard. And so for me, it was like, and I think that's all our beef. And I think there's a strong community that is not super supportive of US ski and snowboard. It's not necessarily, the government. It's just the way things are right now. Is that this is the system, and US ski and snowboard just abuses the system. And so really for us, like we we had this funny thing because we wanted to beat all these other countries. We just wanted to whoop up on the Germans and the Norwegians, but we also then had this other rivalry of like US ski and snowboard and all the sports beneath them. Like we kind of felt like the outcasts because when we show up in the Olympic Village, there's here are all these, we're all there, we're all part of the Olympic team, but there's the cross country athletes and the alpine athletes and all the freestyle athletes who all have support from US ski and snowboard, and we didn't get it. And so we kind of showed up and always felt almost a rivalry between us and those athletes as well, because we just wanted to prove that we were capable of support, and we deserve support as well. And so yeah, I don't know. We always kind of had a beef with US ski and snowboard, and just tons of little shit. Like I remember, I raced in the Olympics in a women's extra small race suit because they didn't bring any race suits for our team, to the Olympics. I had a women's jacket, puffy coat, for the Olympics, and I looked like a super cute girl from behind. I remember it had the curves in it. Um, just shit like that. Whereas like, you show up and you're at the Olympics and you've like made it to the stage, and then you're like, they didn't bring equipment for you. They didn't bring jackets for you. You're in like you're racing in the Olympics in a women's race suit, which I looked awesome in. But
I bet.
it was just stuff like that pissed us off so much. And just kind of kept building this fire of just like, um, yeah, probably just anger.
That's so yeah, I'm so happy I'm talking to you because I would have never have known that. Like even I've been pretty
Hmm.
close to like athletes that have gone to the Olympics and stuff like that. But I mean, and I watched you compete in the Olympics, but I never knew that you had a women's, I mean, it looked pretty tight, but I never knew that you had a women's race suit
Well,
on.
it's already spandex, but yeah, it
Yeah,
is extra tight.
that's crazy. So going into the Olympics, what were you feeling? How did you feel? Just in general.
Well, yeah, so this is funny because I actually, like 2 or 3 weeks before the Olympics, uh, I thought I was quitting. Um, and so like pretty much the background was the year before the Olympics, I had a really good season and I felt like I was super on track and I almost felt like I was a lock for the team. And then 2018 came around and I just totally folded under the pressure. I started overthinking things and I just got in a rut. And I just got in a rut at the perfect time to just completely kind of like my season just started to go super poorly. And all of a sudden I went from being a lock in 2018 to like being like the seventh guy. Um, I was ranked the seventh guy and we were going to take four people um, a couple weeks before the game started, and um, and I was not having any fun. I was burnt out. I put so much pressure on myself. I was just totally folding, um, and I ended up having a really good weekend and moving from the seventh guy to the fifth guy, but we still only had four spots. So I remember having one last chance on the World Cup to get my spot. I could have moved into the top three or four, and I didn't. So I stayed fifth, and um, I pretty much thought for sure that I was the fifth guy on the four-man team. And so I was just like totally, totally heartbroken. Like I remember just um, being devastated. Um, and we were in Europe, and I remember we drove from France to Austria, and it was me and the four guys that knew that they were locks for the team. And I was trying to be happy for them, and they were all excited, but like deep down, like I just couldn't believe I had like fucked it up, like I was just couldn't believe I had blown it basically, and I knew it was my last chance because I knew there was no way that I was making it another 4 years. 4 years is a long time, and so I pretty much thought my Olympic dream was done. And so I remember being at our hotel in Austria, and I remember talking to, I was like in the lobby talking to my girlfriend on the phone, and I was just like, I was I was like in tears. I was just totally a mess. And the rest of our team was upstairs, and someone came and said, "Hey Ben, we have a team meeting." Um, and I went upstairs and I came into the room and I was just kind of standing in the corner. And our executive director was started naming officially the team and was like, "Congrats to Taylor and Jasper and Ben, um, Loomis, different Ben, and Brian." And then he like paused and then he told me, "Ben Berend, you're on the team. We have a fifth spot." Um, a fifth spot had opened up for our team somehow, and I like snuck into the games. And it was the weirdest feeling because I had gone from pretty much being in the lobby talking to my girlfriend like 2 minutes before, telling her like I'm flying home, I'm flying home now. Like I mean it's over, like I'm done. There's no point in even like finishing the season because I was over it. And to then all of a sudden I'm like getting told my life dream is coming true, but I'm in like such a negative pace that it was like the weirdest feeling to go from pretty much the worst feeling in the world to being told you're going to the Olympics. It's like it was insane. And it took me a couple of days to like really really even realize it was happening. But the thing was is yeah, I still got to go to the Olympics, but it didn't change the fact that I knew that I was going to be done. And I knew I wasn't going to ski any longer. So I think that almost helped me enjoy the Olympics that much more because I knew it was like my last hurrah. Um, and and so I'm super grateful that I went into the games actually knowing. It sounds so weird to say, like, you work your whole life for something and you show up there and you know that you're just going to be quitting right afterwards. Um, but in a way, it was like a super beautiful thing because I got to just show up and enjoy the shit out of it and just know, like, Like it didn't matter because this was the end, and I just wanted to I wanted to have a good ending.
That's that's incredible. I just yeah, like I couldn't imagine like you said, I don't think I've ever talked to an athlete who's like, "Oh, I'm going to the Olympics, but this is just going to be my way to have fun." And like you said, like be like a one last hurrah. Because normally
Yeah.
that's like the end all, not the end all. Well, I guess it was your end all be all, but normally it's like
Mhm.
the ultimate like battleground for people. But it's so cool to
Mhm.
hear how in your experience it was just this is just going to be an amazing like
Yeah.
life-changing experience and I'm just going to go have a shit ton of fun. Like that's so cool. Like
Exactly.
I've never and I've talked to people who've gone to the Olympics and it's fun and like the culture around it's fun, but like at the end of the day you're there to compete and you were there to compete too, but it was more of just like
Yeah.
you were be able you had the mental state to be able to live your dream instead of focusing on like fucking up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the thing was, is I knew where I was at. It was like, well, I'm not winning. I'm not winning a gold medal. Um, and so it was kind of like, well, if I'm not going to go there and win a gold medal, like I don't have anything to stress out about because the difference between getting whatever 20th or 30th or 40th place at the Olympics, like it's all the same as long as I go there and I have a good experience. Um, and so it was pretty funny because, the pressure had been on all season to make the games, and I had been just completely folding. And then once we got there and I didn't have that pressure anymore, I just completely started jumping really well again. Um, and I was the fifth guy. I didn't even know if I'd compete, and it's this whole thing when you're at the Olympics and you're the fifth guy, like it's not like you're going to be out partying and stuff because you might have to compete. But you could very well sit around for 2 weeks training every day and being prepared and never get your chance to compete. Um, and so it's this super awkward balance of like you're trying to stay really focused, but then you also know you might not even like put the bib on. And there's this whole debate of if you're an Olympian but you've never competed, are you actually an Olympian? And so I've talked to a lot of athletes that say if you didn't compete, you're not an Olympian. Like if you went there but you never put the bib on, then you're not an Olympian. So to me, like I took that super to heart, and I was like, I'm competing. And so what I had to do was I had to prove that I was not the fifth guy, that I was the fourth guy or the third guy or whatever. Um, but yeah, like I just started jumping well when we got there in training, and I ended up getting to compete twice um, in the individual event and the team event, and so it just worked out super well. And I was just glad that I actually got to put the bib on.
Yeah, so you talk about putting the bib on. So only four athletes are allowed to compete, and I didn't know this actually, but so they brought five, and almost were you a backup almost, and then they allow four to compete, and you guys compete within your team to see who actually gets to compete while you're there already. Oh no.
Sorry, you broke up. Can you
Oh,
say that
can you hear
again?
me? Yeah, no,
Sorry
you're
about
good.
that.
I thought I lost you though.
Yeah.
All right, you're good. All right, so I said so basically they bring five guys, but only allow four to compete, right?
Hmm.
And
Correct.
so I didn't know this, but you basically go there to compete to be able to compete in the Olympics at the Olympics, essentially, right?
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
That's nuts. I just think that's crazy that you go through all the shit of like, oh, I need to qualify, I need to do this, and then you get there and you don't even have a guarantee that you're going to be able to even, like you
Yeah.
said, put the bib on.
It never ends.
And
Totally.
and you also briefly mentioned that there's like people partying and stuff like that. So, and I've heard rumors of the like the village and stuff like that just being like a bunch of super athletic young people who all basically like go around hooking up with each other and like partying and stuff like that. Like what was the cultural experience while you're there and like that question, but also yeah, what was your mindset of like going through and knowing that you wanted to put the bib on?
Yeah, it's. I think the village. It's a lot like when you go to college, like you make what you want of it. Like you can, you know, you can be super focused on school and like bubble in on that, or you can be out partying a bunch. Like you make it the experience you want out of it. And I think the village is the same way. Um, and I think it depends a lot on what team you're on. There's certain teams like, there's certain sports that maybe they don't compete a whole lot, or maybe partying isn't super detrimental to their competition. So it really depends on like what sport you're in, and the schedule too. Like I remember, like for example, when we were there, the mogul team, they had one competition, and it was the second day of the games, and the games last 3 weeks. So, and they didn't have any World Cup competitions till after the games were over. So they all competed on, let's say, a Tuesday, and then they had just under 3 weeks to do whatever they wanted. Um, they were done. Whereas for us, we had competitions consistently. We had 3 competitions over 2.5 weeks, over the first 2.5 weeks. So I remember, with the trainings every single day for 2.5 weeks. So I remember we were just super locked in, and we would be leaving with all of our stuff to go get on the bus to go to the venue for training. And it would be like, 7, 8 in the morning, and we would pass the mogul team as they're getting off, like out of the van from the bars, like heading back into the village after like pulling an all-nighter. And I remember, like, we'd like look at them as they walked by, and we were like in two just different worlds. And it was pretty funny actually, just to see that. Just everyone's kind of having their own experience, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's crazy that like I said, I've heard like little stories and stuff about it, but I just never would assume, not knowing anything, that you get to the Olympics and there's like still a party scene. Like I think that's just that's hilarious. And I think it's super funny too how you compared
Yeah.
it to like college, how it's like a bunch of like young people in dorms essentially from different
Yeah.
countries, and
Hmm.
they can choose their own experiences. But I don't want to spend too much of your time, and we just got to an hour, but I'd love to just hear about, so on the build up to competing over those 2.5 weeks, what was your mindset? Like you said, you knew you weren't really there to win a gold medal, but you were there like for your family and for your country. And can you
Hmm.
just talk about actually competing in the night of those competitions and your mindset while you were competing and stuff like that?
Yeah. And the biggest thing, like I showed up and I was like, I'm competing. And I knew I had to make it happen. And so I just started jumping really well in training. And it just made it an easy decision for the coaches to choose me, um, especially on the bigger hill, and for the team event, jumping is super important. And so just checking that off was huge, because that was kind of the final. It was, it was a couple. It's like, if I could write the story, I know I'm not writing an Olympic gold medal story. That's fine. But I wanted to be able to like have my best performance in the Olympics. And ski jump is one of those things, like you can go up and you could just shank the shit out of your jump, and there's your Olympic experience. You slap the knoll and it's over, and you're on TV, and you know like I just couldn't bear that happening. Um and so luckily, like it just worked out. Like I started jumping well, and um getting to when I found out I was going to compete in the individual event on the big hill, like I just remember like having this huge relief of like, it's happening, like I'm going to get like my ending. um and I ended up having a great jump. I jumped to like 21st, 22nd place. I was in the leaders box for a while. I got to like celebrate. I got to just be like positive and have like such a fun experience. Um, and it was like I felt like I really put like one of my better performances out there, like for that event. um, and my parents were there, um, and it just meant a lot. Like it meant that I could like leave the sport and not like look back. Um, I know so many athletes are like look back on the what ifs, and what if this would have happened, or maybe I should keep going so I can, fix my story, fix my ending. But for me, like it just worked out to the point where I knew like, okay, I can totally be happy like being done from here.
That sounds that's amazing that you feel fulfilled in your experience and that you were content with being done. Because I think, I mean, I couldn't imagine, especially because it's 4 years and like that's such a huge commitment to be like, all right, I'm going to train another 4 years before trying to go back and feeling more fulfilled. And especially because you knew you were being done, I think it's so special that you got the experience that you wanted and you got to be there with your family and you did well too. So
Mhm.
can you just talk a little bit about like why how did you know that you wanted to be done? Was it just just a feeling, or were you just fed up with the
Yeah.
politics of the sport, or did you want to move on to other things in life? And what are those things? And what are you doing now?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I call it the art of knowing when to quit. Like, I think our whole lives were taught, like, oh, you don't want to be a quitter. You gotta, when we're kids, like I remember my parents were always like, oh, you have to play this sport until this long. Like, you need to do this for this long. And we're told like quitting's bad. Quitting is like a negative word. When you hear quitting, you think like a negative thought. Um, but I just think like, I don't know. I think that's so backwards, especially like as an adult, um, because if you don't quit anything, you're just gonna be stuck doing the same shit forever. And I don't think you like learn a whole lot by doing the same stuff forever. And so I just got to the point where like I knew I had gotten everything I could possibly get out of it. I'd gotten to travel the world. I had gotten to compete in World Cups and World Championships and the Olympic Games, and I had like met all these amazing people. But I knew like if I competed for another 4 years, I was gonna be living the same 4 years again. Like I was gonna go to all the same places, compete against all the same people. I was gonna train in all the same ways. Like I was gonna live my life over again, like Groundhog Day style, like another 4 years. Um, because that's what it is. Like being an athlete, like you're doing the same stuff. And so I was just ready to like do something new, learn something different. I didn't feel like I was gonna get a whole lot, I guess I could say, out of another 4 years. And so it was a super easy decision for me. I think a lot of athletes you see, they have a really hard time moving on. Um, but for me, it was so easy because it just made so much sense in my head. I just knew I wasn't going to get a whole lot more out of it. And so, yeah, so I decided I wanted to go to school, and that was something I never got to experience. I had done online classes, but I had never gotten to like be on a college campus. And so my girlfriend went to the University of New Mexico at the time. She was on the ski team there. She was a Nordic skier. And so I was visiting her that spring after the Olympics, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I actually didn't know I wanted to go to school, but I was just trying to figure out what was next. And I just had this eureka moment of like, I should just come here and be on the ski team. So I asked the coach, and he wanted me on the team, and I got accepted into the school, and I had enough credits built up from all the online classes that I took that I only needed one full year of school to graduate. And so it was perfect. Like my girlfriend was Brenna was only needed a year as well to graduate. So we had been like long distance for like 2 years, and now it was sweet because we got to live together and go to school, and it was just a super super cool experience. And getting to be on the ski team, I loved the college skiing experience. It definitely was like the ski experience um, that almost restored my love of skiing. Like I think the college style of skiing suited me really well. It's really team oriented. Um, just all the socializing, and people are pretty relaxed. It's a fun atmosphere. And so it was awesome. Like I got to go to school for a year in Albuquerque, and I never thought I'd get to do that. I kind of thought that by chasing this Olympic dream, I'd never get to get a college experience. So that was super special. I got to meet a ton of cool people. We had a great ski team. I still keep in touch with, pretty much the whole team. And yeah, so that was cool, and that like confirmed that like I made the right decision because I just felt like things went into place really well. And had I not quit, like I would have never gotten that new experience. Um, and so then after that, I graduated, and my girlfriend and I we moved back to Park City, and I started working for the organization I used to compete for. I was the marketing director for USA Nordic for 2 years, and then I kind of got to a point with that where I was ready as well to move on, and kind of gain a new experience. Um, I didn't want to work in sport anymore. I wanted to do something new. Um, and so I actually just moved back to Steamboat Springs, and now I'm a real estate agent, and I'm working here at Sotheby's, and I'm coaching 2 days a week at Howelson Hill actually, for the Nordic Combined program. So yeah, it's like I'm kind of on a new start again now, which is super exciting. I like getting to experience new things, and I think I just always have learned a lot through it. And it's just yeah, like the art of knowing when to quit, the art of knowing when to do something new. Um, I think a lot of people could gain a lot from that.
That's incredible. I think that message is super powerful, and especially nowadays with the whole like hustle and grind and never, like you said, never quit mentality, that it's healthy to know when you need to do that. And now it seems like you found like a healthy future and that you're really happy that like moving on. And I'm really psyched for you, man. That's super exciting.
Thanks, Max.
Yeah. Do you have any last words?
I mean, I just want to say thanks for having me. It's been fun chatting. I'm excited to see who else you get on here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to tune in.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for your time, Ben, and good luck with your future. And I'm psyched to see where you end up.
Thanks. Hit me up when you're in Steamboat
Yeah,
next.
will do. Thanks so much, Ben. Have a good day.
See you,
See
man.
ya. Thank you guys for checking out this podcast with Ben Berend, about talking about the art of knowing when to quit. I think that was the biggest takeaway from this podcast. I really like his perspective on that, and considering his background and the competitive background he comes from, it's cool that he has that perspective. It's very forward thinking. I loved how even through his complications with the US ski and snowboard team and whatnot, he still did what he needed to do to compete at the highest level that he could, and get that bib on and compete in the Olympics, which was just freaking awesome. So thank you guys again for listening, and I will get another episode for y'all on Friday, most likely. We're getting her out there. Have a great day. Thank you guys for checking this out. See you later. Bye.